Rich Mom follows Nanny home at midnight. What she discovered changed everything forever. The moon hung like a watchful eye over the serene neighborhood, casting shadows that twisted and turned in unnatural ways. At midnight, the streets were silent, but for one restless figure, Mila Anderson, a mother whose wealth commanded respect and obedience. Tonight, though, it was her heart pounding in her ears. Why was her nanny, the seemingly perfect Lucy, sneaking out at such an ungodly hour? Mila clutched her purse tightly, fingers trembling. Each step stealthier than the last, she followed the silhouette gliding along the cracked pavement, dark hair flowing freely in the wind, an illusion of innocence shrouded in secrecy. It tugged at something deep inside her, an unsettling mix of fear and intrigue. Lucy had been with her family for 3 years. She was a gem, adored by her kids and praised for her loyalty. But what could pull her out into the night? Lucy turned the corner, disappearing into a maze of dim-lit alleyways. Mila's stomach knotted. Shadows danced along brick walls, flickering with each streetlight. "What the hell are you doing, Mila?" she whispered to herself, glancing behind for any sign of a passerby. But then her breath caught. A sudden sound, a soft whisper. Fear crept in as she strained to hear. It felt almost wrong to be prying, but curiosity clawed at her. Following that whisper was like chasing smoke. It led her deeper into the heart of the town, where secrets thrived beyond the well-kept facades of wealth. "Is this really necessary?" she muttered, grappling with the sensation of creeping dread. A frantic heart could only handle so much. What if she was wrong about Lucy? But a whisper carried by the wind made her freeze. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." Sweat trickled down her back as she rounded a corner, and there it was, a flickering light spilling from an old, abandoned building. The air turned thick with uncertainty. What was Lucy doing there? Mila inched closer, pulse racing, and peeked through a cracked window. The sight inside sent shivers racing down her spine. Lucy was not alone. Shadows moved, and the sound of laughter echoed in a way that felt all too sinister. What kind of laughter could make the blood run cold? And there a glimmer of something gold, catching the light from the flickering bulb, revealing secrets hidden beneath layers of darkness. The tension swelled in Mila's chest. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but her feet were glued to the ground, captivated by the madness unfolding. What was Lucy's real life behind those warm smiles? And as that question throbbed in her mind, uncertainty clawed at her heart, leaving her teetering on the edge of discovery and dread. Mila's breath quickened, the weight of what she was witnessing pressing heavily on her chest. It was no longer just curiosity, it was survival instinct blending with horror. She peered deeper into the darkness of the building, desperate for clarity yet petrified of what she might uncover. The laughter grew louder now, each burst of sound sending ripples of unease through her. It was shrill, almost mocking. Her heart raced as she strained to catch glimpses of the figures shuffling within. A dim light flickered just enough to reveal the outlines of bodies too close together, a gathering that felt wrong. Then, her stomach dropped. Lucy was at the center of the turmoil, her features illuminated by the weak glow. The stark contrast between her usual nurturing smile and the wild look in her eyes sent a jolt down Mila's spine. Just moments ago, she had been a stalwart of safety and comfort. Now, here she was, entangled in something dark and twisted. Why would she do this? Mila whispered, the question tearing itself from her throat. Her instincts screamed at her to turn away, to flee back into the comfort of her meticulously decorated home, but terror kept her frozen, riveted to the cold, unyielding ground. Something clattered inside the building. Mila flinched. Another figure stepped into view. Tall and imposing, he commanded attention with his presence. He wore a black hoodie that hid his face, leaving only shadows to define his features. The laugh shifted, morphing into something more sinister as he approached Lucy. Mila's heart hammered louder, nerves fraying at the edges. Watching them, she felt the pull of an unnameable fear coupled with a relentless need for revelation. Was Lucy in danger? Or was she the danger? The cloying scent of betrayal lingered heavily in the air, shattering the remains of her trust. Suddenly, Mila's phone buzzed violently against her hip, making her jump. She cursed under her breath. With trembling hands, she silenced it, praying that it hadn't drawn any attention. All her focus was on the chaos inside the building. The way Lucy leaned closer to this stranger, conspiratorial whispers blending with hollow laughter. But then Lucy straightened, her expression shifting. Something was said, a word that Mila couldn't hear, and Lucy's eyes glinted with an emotion that sent chills down Mila's spine. Excitement? Well, it didn't belong here. Not here in this decaying structure, which felt more like a trap than a haven. Just then, the brick behind Mila shifted. A crack echoed in the silence, and panic surged through her veins as she realized the danger. She was exposed, a mere footstep away from being caught. She ducked behind a dilapidated trash can, heart drumming in her ears. "What were you thinking, Mila?" she scolded silently, glancing back at the building. Voices started to rise, echoing like a siren song from a sunken ship, urging her to stay, to delve deeper. But the stakes just got much higher. A glimmer of gold caught her eye again, flickering like a beacon of terrible truths. She fought against the pulse of urgency that begged her to flee, but the familiar figure of Lucy pulsed with darker intentions. Mila's heart raced. She was on the verge of uncovering something transformative, something that could shatter her entire life. What she thought she knew about Lucy, her trustworthy nanny, might just unravel into a nightmarish reality. Then, as if reading her mind, Lucy suddenly turned, eyes piercing through the dim light, locking onto Mila's hiding spot. In that moment, everything shifted. The world shrank, and time splintered. "Mila?" Lucy's voice was pointed and chilling, teetering dangerously close to shock. The air thickened, as the naivete that once surrounded their relationship shattered into pieces. Mila's breath hitched, the distance between them narrowing dangerously. The lurking unknown came rushing forward, and she realized her choices were dwindling fast. What had she uncovered? And what would Lucy do next? She stood at the precipice of an awakening that could change everything. Mila's instincts screamed at her to run, but she remained frozen, caught in Lucy's penetrating gaze. Panic and dread mingled in the pit of her stomach. There was no escaping this moment. Lucy's smile was gone, replaced by something darker, an intensity that Mila had never seen before. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice low and steady, the amusement from earlier evaporating like mist under the morning sun. Mila's throat tightened. I saw you," she managed to stutter, the words feeling sharp and clumsy on her tongue. "I was worried." A brief flicker of concern crossed Lucy's face before the shadows overtook it again. "You shouldn't be here, Mila. You have no idea what you're meddling with." Before Mila could respond, the man in the hoodie shifted, stepping closer to Lucy. He moved with such purpose it made Mila's skin crawl. The laughter of the other figures faded, replaced by an expectant silence. "What do you mean?" Mila's voice was shaky, but it fought against the fear. "Is this some kind of cult or something?" The absurdity seemed like a grasping last hope, but the seriousness of the gathering soon dismissed her impulsive question. "Cult? No, sweetheart." Lucy's voice dripped with a dark amusement. "This is so much bigger than that." As she spoke, there was a flicker of movement from the shadows behind Lucy. A figure stepped into the weak light, revealing a face that made Mila's heart race. It was Tristan, a local name she recognized from the news. A known criminal, rumored to have ties with the underbelly of the city. He offered a smile that sent chills darting down her spine. "Mila," Tristan said, his voice smooth like silk. "I didn't expect to see you here. You really shouldn't have followed Lucy. It isn't safe for you." Mila felt a wave of nauseous disbelief. Was Lucy involved with someone like him? This couldn't be the woman who had cared for her so tenderly. "What is going on, Lucy?" What is happening here? Mila, it's not what you think. Lucy's eyes softened slightly, but were still filled with an intensity that made her unrecognizable. You have a choice to make. A choice? Mila pressed, her pulse quickening again. What choice? Suddenly, there was movement at the entrance to the building. A few more figures appeared, wrapping the scene in a sense of foreboding. They were wearing black, their faces obscured. Mila's heart raced at the sight. She took a step back, instincts kicking in, urging her to flee, but Lucy continued, now fully engaged, the opportunity to sway Mila evident in her voice. You can join us, understand our purpose, or leave now and never look back. Those are your only options. The confidence radiating from Lucy was chilling. Mila staggered back, the truth across her mind like a lightning bolt. What have you become? The group tensed, Lucy's cohorts exchanging glances, waiting for her signal. It was as if time had split, a moment stretched into eternity, and every breath felt like a precipice leading to an unknown plunge. Mila, you have to see the bigger picture, Lucy insisted, her tone inflected with both desperation and menace. You were always meant for more. What does that even mean? Mila's voice cracked, doubts swirling in her mind. She couldn't fathom Lucy's true motivations. The abyss stared back at her, dark and treacherous. Just when it seemed like their dark intentions would swallow her whole, Lucy stepped forward, fully revealing the gold glint around her neck. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry, it was an object that pulsed with power and energy, and it drew Mila in despite the danger. Everything went red. The hostility enveloped them, thick and suffocating. Questions spiraled, and the weight of secrets pressed down on Mila like a shroud. The air buzzed with anticipation, the tension almost crackling. Before she could decide, Lucy's mouth curved in a knowing smile, a signal, a trap, or an invitation, and then a piercing scream shattered the stillness, erupting from somewhere in the building. A sound soaked in pure terror. Mila's heart raced as the figures turned toward the sound, the hidden threat. Suddenly exposed. What was that? Mila gasped, fear cascading in waves. Was the gathering about to dissolve into chaos? In that moment, she realized she was at a crossroads, one path leading into deeper darkness, the other toward salvation. But escape meant leaving everything, including Lucy, behind. As the tension shifted, uncertainty layered thickly around them. Mila felt her choices closing. The scream echoed in her ears. Whatever truth lay ahead would change everything. Would her loyalty to Lucy lead her into the shadowed depths, or could she claw her way back and confront the truth lurking in the sliding door behind her? Time hung in the air, pregnant with possibilities. The night was alive, and the answers may very well devour them all. Mila's breath hitched in her throat as the scream transformed into a low, chilling howl, echoing through the dimly lit space. The tension escalated, thick as fog, and the figures in black whipped their heads toward the source, eyes wide with dread and curiosity. What was that? One of them muttered, his voice barely a whisper, yet it resounded through the air filled with trepidation. Mila glanced around, her heart pounding like a drum. She searched for an escape route, a way out of this nightmare. But the shadows now loomed larger, wrapping her in their sinister embrace. She couldn't wrap her mind around the situation. Her past with Lucy clashed violently with the monstrous reality before her. Lucy moved, her gaze cutting through the dark like a knife. It's nothing you need to worry about, Mila. Stay focused. Mila's instincts screamed at her to run. She took a shaky step backward, the space between her and Lucy expanding. You mean it's nothing to worry about? Someone's in danger. There are greater dangers at play here. Tristan interjected, a flicker of excitement crossing his features. Don't you see? You're at the cusp of something extraordinary, Mila. Why would you want to leave? His voice dripped with honeyed temptation, but the predatory look in his eyes was anything but inviting. Mila felt a shiver crawl down her spine. Extraordinary? She scoffed, her voice rising amid the chaos. You call this an extraordinary life? You're locking me into some twisted game. I want to be a part of it. Game? Lucy's voice hardened, a colorful tapestry of shades weaving through her fury and desperation. This isn't a game. This is survival. In that moment, the air shifted again, The previously silent figures in black murmured amongst themselves, unease tangled in their whispers. They stood like sentinels, watching, waiting. Mila's heart raced faster, sensing the imminent danger. Suddenly, the scream echoed again, louder this time, raw and filled with visceral fear that gripped Mila's insides. She could feel it, the terror was real. This was no mere distraction. Whatever was happening outside was intertwined with her current fate. Lucy's voice dropped to a nearly unbearable soft whisper, filled with conflicting emotions. It's too late to go back. We need you. Need me? Mila could hardly contain her disbelief. For what? To join whatever sick experiment or cult you've become a part of. No, I'm done. But the shadows danced closer. She could sense the pressure mounting, as if the very fabric of the room contracted, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Mila's back met the wall, grounding her, but it also caged her in. Before she could think, calamity shattered the night's thin veil. The building rattled as a loud crash resounded from the entrance, a heavy thud that vibrated through the floor beneath her feet. The figures jerked around, their faces twisting in shock, and Mila couldn't suppress her gasp. Mila, stay here. Lucy commanded as she spun around, gripping her necklace, now pulsing with a fierce golden glow. This might get messy. Messy? Mila echoed, disoriented. What do you mean? Then the door flung open, light pouring in, and a silhouette emerged. Tall, imposing, the figure stepped into the glow, his presence deepening the shadows. Mila squinted, trying to make sense of the outline. A familiar face emerged from the darkness, a face that struck her like a lightning bolt. James? She breathed, barely able to wrap her mind around the scenario. Why was he here? But before the reunion could unfold, chaos erupted. Figures darted for the exit, and the tension morphed into a whirlwind of shouting and scuffling. Mila felt her heart racing as she looked back at Lucy, whose face was consumed with a chilling anticipation. Mila, make your choice now. Lucy shouted over the uproar, urgency cracking through her composed facade. Escape or stay. The decision pressed onto her chest like a massive weight. The world had spiraled out of control, and every second felt like a countdown. As she stood there, faced with the horror around her and the uncertainty of loyalty, the true meaning of survival loomed large. But the decision she'd make next might unleash a darkness far worse than any fear she'd confronted yet. What would Mila choose when the chaos reached its peak? The room spun. Mila's instincts screamed at her to flee, but the faces around her were wild with panic. Lucy's presence loomed stronger than ever, almost suffocating her with the weight of expectation. In her gut, she felt the urgency twist and coil, like a snake waiting to strike. Mila. James stepped further into the room, a wall of confidence that contrasted sharply against the chaos. Get out of here. Now. His voice cut through her confusion. She had always trusted James, but this version of him seemed somehow more dangerous, familiar yet foreign. The crowd pressed closer, the black figures shifting to the edges, eyes darting anxiously. Stay with me, Lucy whispered fiercely. The way her eyes burned with desperation made Mila's heart ache. But could she? Every nerve ending buzzed, igniting her fight-or-flight response. The knowledge that something terrible lurked in the shadows roused a panic inside her. What is happening? Mila demanded, her voice shaking. There are things you don't understand, things you can't comprehend. Lucy's grip tightened around her necklace, the golden glow pulsating like a heartbeat. Before Mila could respond, a loud crash came from the far side of the room. The shadows seemed to leap, coiling around unseen entities clamoring for attention. The figures dressed in black shifted nervously, their whispered conversations rising like a tide, echoing her fears. Stay focused. Tristan barked, evidently trying to reinstate control. You're crucial, Mila. Don't let them distract you. But how could she focus when every instinct told her to flee? A part of her longed to take James's hand and bolt out of the madness. Yet, the mention of important and extraordinary clawed at her curiosity. What was she really needed for? Or was this a trap, designed to ensnare the last vestiges of her freedom? Mila, a sudden whisper skimmed across the noise, soft and eerie. It was another voice, familiar yet distant. Her breath caught again as she spun around. Who was there? A figure emerged from the shadows, small and lithe. A girl, her face shadowed, yet the outline was unmistakable. Mila. The girl's voice trembled, but was laced with urgency. They're coming for you. Mila's heart leaped. It was Emma, her sister. But Emma had been gone for years. Fear squeezed tight around Mila's chest. Emma? What do you mean? The panic in Emma's eyes deepened, her slender frame shaking with dread. You have to get out. They've awakened something. You can't stay here. The sound of commotion surged like a tidal wave, drowning Emma out. Lucy shot a sideways glance, eyes darting back to Mila's, mixed with admiration and sorrow. Mila, please. I know it's hard to understand, but we need you. The moment shattered as another crash resonated, closer this time. The walls trembled, revealing thin cracks as voices heightened and bodies collided. Mila, this is your last chance. James shouted, moving closer, eyes blazing. Choose. His presence felt protective, yet underneath it was something sharp, dangerous. Mila could sense the tension crackling in the air, a storm of dark intent looming just beyond the threshold. The room now felt alive, pulsing. To stay or to flee felt like choosing between life and death. But just when Mila thought she might step back, a chilling sound sliced through the chaos, a low growl that rumbled like thunder from the entrance. Every person hesitated, every figure froze as the air thickened, pregnant with dread. Not them, Emma whispered, her voice trembling like autumn leaves. Do not let them find you, Mila. As the shadows began to stir towards the entrance, dread looped back in Mila's chest. The growl morphed into a howling chorus, a warning to all who dared to linger. Mila. James reached out, desperate. Tristan's eyes watched her with unflinching intensity. No, Lucy urged. Decide. In that moment, Mila faced a vortex of choices. Would she embrace the shadows or run into the light? Behind her, the growls grew louder, crashing like waves crashing on a desolate shore. The chaos swirled about her, anchoring her in indecision. She had to make her choice or forever be claimed by the darkness waiting at the door. Just as she felt the weight of the world crashing down, a figure flickered in the doorway, something worse than all her fears combined lurking just behind it. What would happen if she didn't choose at all? Mila stood paralyzed as the shadows shifted like restless spirits, creeping closer under the mounting tension. She could almost feel their icy breath against her skin, digging into her resolve. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she found herself rooted in place as she wrestled with the choice laid before her. Choose. James's voice thundered again, slicing through the din behind him. The chaos of the room darkened, a swirling pool of fear and uncertainty. The growls intensified, a chorus of doom that reverberated through the air. The figures in the corners seemed to close in, their faces twisting in grotesque expressions of anticipation. Mila, please. Emma cried, her own terror reaching a peak. You don't understand what they want. What do they want? Mila asked, desperation pulling at her. She felt torn between the familiar safety of her sister and the uncertain call of the unknown ahead. They want you. Emma exclaimed, her voice cracking. You're the key to everything. What did that even mean? Mila's mind raced, piecing together fragments of understanding. Deep down, she could sense the truth hiding in plain sight, but the urgency of the moment made it almost impossible to think straight. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the room, extinguishing several candles in a breath of darkness. The figures gasped collectively, their expressions shifting from panic to a fervent hunger. Mila. Lucy's voice trembled, breaking through the chaos. You have to trust us. You're stronger than you realize. Stronger? How? Tears welled in Mila's eyes, the storm of emotions pushing her to the brink. I'm just me. Lucy stepped forward, her urgency a tangible thing, pulling Mila back from the edge of despair. You're more than just you. There's power in you waiting to be unleashed. You just need to embrace it. Mila's chest tightened, heart racing. She felt untethered, drowning in indecision. A horrible realization crept into her thoughts. Perhaps the shadows were tied to her own fears, her own insecurities. But could they really want her? Amid the frenzy, an ominous figure edged into the doorway. Tall, cloaked in darkness, its face obscured. It stood there, watching. Mila felt like prey, still and shivering, caught in the gaze of something unfathomable. "Leave her alone," James shouted, stepping in front of Mila like a shield. "She's not afraid of you." But fear was what gripped Mila, plunging deep into her veins. She was terrified not just for herself, but for everyone around her. "What is it that I'm supposed to do?" Mila called out, her voice stronger than she felt. The growl from the shadows seemed to echo her question, a haunting chorus feeding off her uncertainty. Tristan, on the periphery, eyed the advancing figure cautiously. "Mila, the power lies in your choice. Don't just stand there. You'll either bind them or break free." The urgency in his voice jolted her, bringing clarity to the forefront despite the roiling chaos. She had something within her, something that felt like a flicker of light hidden beneath layers of fear. "Mila." Emma's voice was raw with emotion as she stepped closer, her eyes pleading. "You have to remember why you're important." But even as Emma spoke, the darkness in the room thickened. Shadows pulsed, screaming for attention, and snaring every person captive in their disquieting grasp. Mila Lucy's voice softened, but it was too quiet now, mere whisper against the howling winds of dread, and then it hit her a memory. A long-forgotten lesson taught by the hardships that had chased her for years. About choices, strength, and the resilience that sometimes lay hidden inside. "Enough," she shouted, her voice slicing through the noise with newfound determination. In that pivotal moment, the room fell silent, all eyes, even the grotesque figures, fixed on her. If she didn't choose, she could lose everything. And yet, what awaited her on the other side of that choice? Hope or damnation? As she steadied herself, the doors rattled violently as if responding to her internal struggle, a force trying to pull her back, whispering doubts into her ear. "Mila, remember," Emma urged, on the brink of tears. And then, in that breathless silence, she felt it, the surge of power flooding through her veins. Would she harness it or allow it to drown her? The figure outside shifted, its growl a promise of chaos that wouldn't wait much longer. "Mila!" James cried again, voice taut with urgency. With a deep inhale, she braced herself with equal parts fear and courage, poised to face what lay ahead. But as she took a step forward, shadows surged in unison, clawing toward her. What would happen when her choice was made? The shadows lunged like ravenous wolves, eager to snatch the light from Mila. She felt their cold fingers grasp at her, wrapping around her ankles, threatening to pull her back into the darkness. Instinct kicked in, her heart raced, a wild drumbeat urging her to fight. This was it. "Mila, you can do this," Emma shouted, desperation punctuating her words. The weight of their gazes bore down on her. Questions swirled inside. What power? What choice? Just behind her, the chill of uncertainty loomed like a storm cloud. It was time to decide. In that moment of clarity, an image flashed in her mind, a young girl staring into a mirror, whispering her dreams into her reflection, believing fiercely that she could be more than what life had handed her. Tears brimmed in Mila's eyes, not just from fear but from a rush of long-buried hope. "Enough!" she screamed, her voice booming, cutting through the chaos. The shadows faltered for a heartbeat, and she could feel the air shift as the room held its breath. Was it possible? Could she channel the strength that was buried deep inside? A warmth ignited within her, illuminating a path through the darkness that surrounded her. "Gaze into yourself," Lucy implored, her fierce belief lighting a fire in Mila's chest. With trembling hands, Mila reached out, focusing on the darkness creeping forward. "I want to let you take me." A pulse of energy radiated outward, vibrant and alive. The shadows hesitated, swirling uncertainly. "Do it," Tristan urged, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Embrace it." With a surge of adrenaline, she closed her eyes and envisioned herself standing against the shadows, powerful and unwavering. It was as if the shadows were a mirror reflecting her deepest insecurities back at her. "You can have me," she bellowed, fueled by a force she never knew she possessed. Suddenly, the room erupted in a brilliant light that exploded from her core. It expanded rapidly, enveloping her friends and dispersing the shadows like mist before the morning sun. The growls turned to howls of fury, and in an instant, the figures lost their form, dissipating into nothingness as the warmth of her light pushed them back. Breathless, Mila opened her eyes to a transformed space, a clarity settling around her like a protective shield. The ominous figure in the doorway shrank into nothingness, finally relinquishing its grip on the room. Emma rushed forward, embracing Mila fiercely, her face bright with pride. "You did it. You really did it." But just as Mila felt the weight of triumph wash over her, a chilling whisper cut through the air like glass shattering. "You may have won this round, Mila, but the darkness is not finished with you yet." Everyone froze, their hearts racing. The voice echoed around them, sliding into the shadows that still twisted at the edges of the room. "What was that?" Lucy whispered, every eye darting toward the corners where the shadows lingered. A sense of dread pooled in Mila's stomach, churning like a storm threatening to break loose. As if they could sense it too, the shadows began to pulse again, but now with a different energy, one of patience and malice. "Mila, we need to go now," James urged, glancing nervously at the dark corners, but she could feel the weight of it, the pull of something deeper. Something meant for her to uncover. She took a shaky breath, determination flickering back to life. "Not yet. We need to find out what it means. I have to know." As she stepped forward, the shadows writhed restlessly, and an eerie laughter echoed, sending chills spiraling down her spine. They might have pushed back the darkness for now, but its promise of return loomed larger than ever. What had she awakened, and what came next? The room pulsed with an energy that felt electric, and Mila's friends stood wide-eyed, their expressions a mix of awe and terror. Each heartbeat thudded thunderously in her ears as the shadows seemed to breathe, gathering strength in the corners like a predator honing in on its prey. "Mila, this isn't a game." Emma's voice wavered, laden with urgent fear. She stepped closer, her hand reaching up, ready to ground them in the reality they barely understood. "No, we can't leave." Mila's own voice shocked her, trembling yet resolute. "We've fought too hard to turn back now. If there's more to uncover, we can't run from it." With each word, she felt an odd bubbling confidence, the shadows wrapping tightly around her thoughts, but no longer scaring her. They were merely reflections of her fears, an image of everything she had kept hidden. She clenched her fists, allowing the warmth deep inside to guide her as she focused on that feeling, that flame. The light from her core flickered and then surged again. It poured out of her in golden beams, illuminating the entire room and finally casting away the encroaching darkness. She could feel the warmth seep into her friends, their expressions shifting from terror to hope. The shadows recoiled, hissing like a wounded creature, but now they behaved almost hungrily, circling, testing for weakness. Lucy started, her voice softening, echoing the fear that lingered in the silence that followed. Suddenly, just behind them, a wall shimmered, revealing dark, swirling portals that beckoned for her attention. The very air around them thinned as everything else faded long enough for her to fixate on the swirling edges. They seemed to pulse with rhythm, like a heartbeat echoing a dark symphony. "What is going on?" James shouted, panic spluttering his voice. He took a step back, but the shadows pushed closer as if sensing his fear. A sense of danger flared through Mila. Gripped by an instinct stronger than fear, she took a careful step toward the portal. "Whatever this is, it's a part of me. It's a part of my past." A sharp gasp escaped Emma's lips. "You can't be serious. This could be a trap." But Mila stood still, embers of bravery igniting her heart. "I have to see what lies beyond. Please trust me." Her friends exchanged desperate glances, the uncertainty heavy as bricks. Then, with an almost collective, reluctant nod, they stepped forward, forming a wall of support behind her. It felt electric, a confirmation of their bond, even as fear swirled around them. As they neared, The light they had summoned cast flickering shadows against the encroaching blackness, contorting into grotesque shapes that whispered secrets of despair. "Don't. You don't want to go in there," their haunting echoes cried, resonating through Mila's mind. But the flickering light intensified, and as she reached out towards the portal, something strange happened. The shadows began to scream, their voices rising and mixing with an unsettling chorus of laughter. Mila's heart sank for a fleeting moment. What if this was a mistake? What if stepping through meant losing everything? With thoughts racing, she took one deep breath, drawing in the courage that surprised her every time. Nothing was set in stone. This was her journey, and it was time to uncover every dimly lit corner, every secret buried in the dark. As she stepped onward, a vivid rush of energy pushed through her. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. "Mila!" Emma yelled, reaching out, but it was too late. Mila was enveloped by a whirl of shadows and light, the world around her collapsing in a gust of swirling energy, leaving her teetering on the edge of a dizzying abyss. The moment she thudded against solid ground, all sound fell away, replaced by an echoing silence. She stood in an endless expanse of darkness, alone and stripped of the security of her friends. Then, in the distance, a faint glow ignited. A figure approached. A familiar silhouette stepped from the shadows, and an inexplicable recognition sent a chill up her spine. "Welcome home, Mila," a voice whispered softly, sending ripples of unease coursing through her. What had she truly awakened? What secrets did the darkness hold about her past? Who are you?" Mila's voice trembled. The figure stepped forward, revealing a face she recognized too well: her mother. A deep knot tightened in her chest. It had been years since she had seen her, not since the accident that had severed their bond. "Mama?" The word slipped out, laden with disbelief. The flickering light illuminating the space kissed her mother's features, revealing a blend of warmth and an unsettling edge that made Mila step back instinctively. "I'm here, Mila, I have always been," her mother said, her tone smooth and inviting yet edged with a haunting echo. The shadows around them seemed to pulse, wrapping tighter as if drawn by the gravity of their reunion. "This isn't real," Mila whispered, her heart pounding. "You can't be here. You died." "No, dear. I simply transcended. I've been waiting for you to find your way back," her mother replied, a smile forming, but it felt threatening instead of comforting. Mila shook her head, backs of her heels brushing against the coldness of what lay behind her, a void filled with endless possibilities and terrible truths. "Why would I want to return?" "Everything that happened was part of your path," her mother interrupted, the shadows behind her shimmering. "You were chosen for something greater, Mila. The darkness that you see? It's what you must embrace." With every word, Mila felt something tightening in her throat, rage and grief mixing into a heavy knot. "I don't want this. I don't want your power, your darkness, any of it." The silence grew, jagged and disquieting. The glowing figure began to blur, shifting like smoke. "You must listen to me," she urged, stepping forward, yet the shadows recoiled in response. "You need to harness what you possess, to unlock the potential inside you know." Mila shouted, the word ripping through the night. Memories flashed before her eyes, laughter over breakfast, warm embraces, then the crash. The air quivered, heavy, loaded with suspense. Mila took a shaky breath, rejecting the grip of the darkness. "I'll never be you." Her mother's face twisted, shifting from maternal warmth to something cold, a shadow of malice twisting across her features. "Then you'll never know your true self." Fury ignited in Mila, a fierce blaze brighter than anything around her. She struggled against the shadows that lunged at her, clenching her fist, grounding herself in her own conviction. "This isn't home. This is just a nightmare." The darkness howled in protest, more pronounced, swirling around in frantic fury as lights clashed. The figure wavered, her mother's voice warping into a cacophony of whispers. "You can't escape what you are. Watch me." Mila screamed, a surge of power bursting within her. With it came clarity, her determination crystallized into a shield against the storm. She thrust her palm forward, intending to push the shadows back, to disrupt the nightmare reality that hung in suffocating layers. I will not be trapped. The moment the glow of her light clashed against the surrounding darkness, it shattered like glass, reverberating with an explosive sound. The fierce radiance pulsated with danger, and Mila could feel the weight of the shadows begin to crack. But just as victory seemed close, the world around her shifted again, the edges of the void morphing into something formless. A new presence stirred, greater, more chaotic than the echoes of her mother. Now you've done it, Mila. You've attracted attention, a sultry voice purred, dripping with malevolence. Mila turned, eyes wide, heart racing, sensing the change in the atmosphere as more figures emerged, swirling and merging from the void, each more sinister than the last. Breathless and filled with dread, she realized the game was not over. The hunt was just beginning, and the shadows were no longer alone. What had she unleashed? What were these new entities that had come for her? The shadows writhed as if alive, swirling around Mila while the air was thick with tension. Panic gripped her heart, the world around her becoming a twisting nightmare. Yet a small part of her pulsed with determination. I won't let them take me, she murmured under her breath. Adrenaline surged, igniting a fire within her. A figure materialized from the darkness, enveloped in an aura that screamed of danger. Welcome, it purred, voice smooth and chilling. You've opened the door, Mila. Now, will you join us, or will you fight? The invitation felt like a noose tightening around her throat. Every instinct screamed to turn and flee, yet she stood her ground. I will fight, she shouted, shock sending ripples through the specters. They paused, some recoiling, as if startled by her resolve. Fight then. But you're alone, the figure hissed, shifting closer. You're nothing without your friends. The reminder struck deep. Images of James, Emma, and Lucy skittered through her mind, friends who had stood by her, who had believed in the power she was just beginning to tap into. She felt the pulse of their trust, their love, and it wrapped around her like an impenetrable shield. I'm not alone, she bellowed. Together, we are stronger. The darkness hissed, swirling in agitation, but Mila pressed forward, the light from within her igniting into a brilliant cascade, illuminating the shadows lurking in every corner of this dark expanse. You don't get to decide who I am. With every step, the shadows recoiled, shadows seeming to writhe in distress. The oppressive weight they carried began to lift, a spark of hope igniting within her, spreading through her veins like wildfire. Mila, a voice called from behind her. It was Emma and James, tumbling through the swirling shadows, bringing with them a burst of warmth and light that cast the encroaching darkness further back. We're here. The moment they came into her view, she felt a swell of strength wash over her. We need to stand together, she shouted, urgency bleeding into her voice. Without hesitation, Emma and James joined hands with Mila, forming a circle of light amidst the chaos. Their combined energy pulsed, igniting a supernova of warmth that shattered the shadows, illuminating the gloom enveloping them. The malevolent figures recoiled, their sinister laughter fading into pained howls. Do you see? An echo of her mother's voice shrieked from the void, drenched in malice. You think that light can vanquish the dark? Yes, Mila cried back, confidence vibrating in her chest. Because together, we are unbreakable. That simple statement rang true all around them, echoing with a power that rippled through the very fabric of this shadowy realm. The figures, weakened by their own darkness, began to dissolve, the malevolent energy sapping away. Mila felt the ground tremble beneath her, but she stood firm, resolutely channeling her power along with her friends as they reached a crescendo. Join hands. Focus on the light, she shouted as they connected, hands clasping tightly. With a deep breath, a stream of luminous energy erupted from their joined hands, cascading outward and enveloping them like a shield. The shadows writhed and screeched, desperately trying to cling to the light as it surrounded them, but slowly they retreated, lost beneath the shimmering brilliance of their unity. The air thickened, the oppressive weight lessening with each pulse of light. And then, it happened. A brilliant explosion coursed through the darkness. The shadows shattered magnificently, scattering like ashes in the wind, leaving behind nothing but a whisper and the promise of dawn. Mila's breath caught as they plunged into blinding light, and suddenly, she found herself standing in the familiar facade of her peaceful neighborhood, the moon a bright guardian overhead. Everything felt painfully ordinary, apart from the shift in her heart. They had defeated the shadow together, yet an unsettling certainty whispered in her mind. The darkness would return. "Is it over?" Emma asked, her eyes wide with disbelief. "No," Mila replied, the weight settling in her bones. "We've won this battle, but we need to be ready for the next." Lucy stood on the periphery, a mix of relief and fear in her gaze. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, vulnerability cracking through her usual composure. Days of secrets fell away, revealing raw truth beneath. "I didn't know how to bring you in without risking everything. But I can help you understand." "Mila," James said, gripping her wrist tightly, grounding her intentions. "No matter how dark it gets, we'll face it together. Always." Mila swallowed, emotions swirling within her. "Always." As they began their walk home, the shadows that lingered nearby faded, wrapped in the light of their promise to one another. Together, Mila repeated softly, heart swelling. They would rise, stronger, braver, ready to face whatever darkness awaited them. The night whispered that their journey was far from over, but for now, in the glow of their bond, everything felt whole. If you appreciated this thrilling conclusion, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm, and make sure to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this shocking conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.